You're listening to the home of cool, irreverent, and entertaining talk, right here on LA Talk Radio. You're listening to The Art of Love with your host, Lucia, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to The Art of Love. My name is Lucia. I'm your host and a dating and relationship expert. And I'm here to entertain, educate, and enlighten you about love, dating, and relationships. Solve your dating dilemmas, take your live calls, answer your emails, and speak to authors of books which I like and which I think will be helpful to you. And boy, do I have a book for you today. Oh boy, you may not be the same after you listen to this interview. So you may not want to listen actually, because you will become more enlightened. And once you're more enlightened, you can't go backwards. So the book is called Grant Me a Higher Love, which of course makes me think of the song by Steve Winwood. What was his title? Give Me a Higher Love? Bring Me a Higher Love? Something like that. Anyways, okay, I have on the line Cindy Sansone Braff, author of Grant Me a Higher Love. Hey, Cindy.
Hi, how are you today? Thanks for having me on your show.
Hey, it's great to be on. I know this is going to be a really interesting interview because of your subject matter. So your website is grantmeahigherlove.com, same as the book. And all right, let me mention a little bit about you, your bio, so everyone knows how wonderful you are. You're an award-winning playwright. You have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Connecticut. Professional entertainer, relationship coach, tarot card reader, and medium with more than 15 years' experience. You lecture, teach workshops, and give private consultations throughout the U.S. and around the world. So,
absolutely,
this is a great book, but it's a huge book. I mean, is it bigger than War and Peace?
Yeah, I said, I should sell it by the ounce. I'd get richer. It's quite heavy. It weighs 2 pounds. Next time I'm writing a 1-pound book. You have to schlep these around. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
but It is a Bible of relationships. It's more than a book, you know what I mean? And I try to put everything you might need to know that could derail you in your relationships. Sometimes we might not experience jealousy with one person, but with our next mate we might. So, there's things that you might need at different stages of your life. So I made sure the book is pretty thorough. If you're having a problem in your relationship, the answer should be in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you come to write this book?
Well, I think I was pretty much born to do this. I've always had this sort of writer mindset in which I was living life but sort of stepped a little bit above it. I would be observing everything that was going on around me. And, I was born in the 50s and sort of the shadow of World War II. And there were a lot of shell-shocked fathers and marriages that weren't really very good. And I couldn't understand why grown-ups get to be mean to each other. That's pretty much what I thought. Mm-hmm. They get away with that, saying mean things, doing mean things. And there was this one couple who were maybe in their 30s, and what they had was a different animal than the rest of the people. They were actually nice to each other. She looked forward to him coming home. They loved each other. There was a warmth, something that looked different. And I thought, I wonder what that is, and maybe someday I'll find out. So my whole life is sort of observing relationships, and, I've had, every conceivable relationship of my own. So the universe definitely gave me my own arena in which to figure this out as well.
Wow. Okay. So now you wrote that you became, that by becoming enlightened, it was a life-altering experience. So what does it feel like to be enlightened?
So, it's funny because I hadn't talked to God in more than 20 years when this happened. I was about 41. And really, a spiritual crisis is what our midlife crisis is. We start to wake up one day and say there's more to life than this. And I had a 15-year-old at the time who was pretty rebellious, as American children can be. Mm-hmm. And one day I told her, Shawn, you have to get up for school today. And she just perked up from her bed for a second, looked at me, dead on and said, why, Mommy? So I could do everything perfect, look perfect, work hard, do everything right, and grow up to hate my, life the way you do. I don't think so. I don't think so. And I really wanted to say, move over in that bed. In there with you. And I realized, I said, what am I teaching my child? Dear God, what am I teaching her? And me who hadn't spoken to God in 20 years, but I was also having massive stage fright, and I was an entertainer, and I did about 500 shows a year, children's entertainment. I've been a belly dancer, Hawaiian dancer,
wow.
so
Cool.
doing 500 different shows a year. I couldn't afford to have stage fright, and so I would say before each show, "Dear God, help me." And one day I just said, "God, I need a miracle in my life," and almost instantly came this feeling of enlightenment, and it was sort of an experience that I began to see the world through different eyes, that it was all good. And I pretty much said to God, "Why are you picking me? I'm not going to be Mother Teresa." And God said, "I'm not asking you to be Mother Teresa. I'm asking you to be you." Who did Jesus pick as the disciples? He picked hardworking people, people who would get the job done. They weren't the rabbis. They weren't the spiritual people. They were just people who would pray one minute and curse the next. You'll do the job. Just be you. And so it began kind of this 15-year journey to finding out who I was, and very much every step of the way divinely guided, and it's been quite an experience.
Wow. And so what does it feel like to be enlightened finally?
I think it feels that you're still pretty very much human. You're never going to, I'm going to freeze to death out there in the cold without a coat on, and I'm going to starve without food,
Right, right.
You're never so far above the human animal that, and, I could see how unenlightened I can be sometimes when I have financial struggles, of course, and I'll say, "God, why am I still struggling so much about this?" And God will say, "Well, A, you'd write a check for everybody and fix it all, and I can't have you fixing everybody's mess. You can't write checks for every person who's having trouble.
Right.
And 2, you just need to have the slightest feeling that your money is threatened, and ye of little faith. I need you to understand you're hardworking. Stop worrying so much." And so God still will test me all along, and I think it just feels like when a situation is bad, I kind of say, what lesson do you want me to learn in this? What have I not learned? What am I not seeing correctly? And please show it to me. And you sort of have these angels and guides who every day say to me things like this: "You judged somebody today." And I'll go, "No, I don't think I did." And they'll go, "We want you to review your entire day." And all of a sudden I'll say, "Yeah, I really did." And they just point out things every day. And what an enlightened being is someone who knows the right way to behave.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, 90% of the time I say I do behave correctly. I still have my 10%. And I'll just know that it's not the right way to behave.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I will try not to do it again. So I think all of us who are old souls, and most of us walking the earth right now are being asked to walk that path of enlightenment. It isn't easy, but it sure is a better world if we can all just start to see other people's viewpoint and, not be the one who's in judge and jury, and be a little bit more tolerant and forgiving. It's a wonderful thing.
Right. I know. I think we know what the right thing to do is. We just don't want to. It's just easier to not do the right thing most of the time.
And because most of the world is reinforcing like revenge or vengeance, which goes back to ancient Greece. As a playwright, all the ancient Greek plays were about vengeance and seeking vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch television now, so much of it is being vengeful.
Yeah.
And, the shows that are forgiving are so wonderful to watch, but we have to move away from thinking we have to seek vengeance. Leave it in the hands of karma and go in peace. We have to stop thinking we can change somebody. We can't. We can't rescue people. That's not our job to rescue. Stop with that you're going to fix somebody, you're going to change somebody. It's not going to happen. And so all of these things are lessons that we have to learn, and the sooner we learn them, the better.
I agree. All right. So let's get to what I believe is the heart and soul of the book, and that is, what is the difference between a soulmate, a cellmate, which I had never heard that term before, and a razor's edge relationship?
Okay, basically what was channeled to me is love is like a ladder. And oddly enough, this is not a new concept. I was guided to read Plato's Symposium when I wrote the book. And I realized that, and I said, God, this is hard. This is hard to read. And I got really nervous having to read this. And I heard my angels chuckle and go, "What does symposium mean?" I said, "I don't have a clue." And they go, "Look it up." Well, it means a drinking party. And I heard the voice of Plato say, "You need to have 2 glasses of wine and then read this." We were drunk when we were writing this stuff. So why don't you just get a little relaxed and read it? So I began to realize that the Greeks classified love into 2 categories, heavenly and common. Heavenly was the kind of love that brings out the best in us and makes our soul soar and brings us in touch with all the collective soul of humankind. We begin to create art and poetry and music. And then common love, which is the love we see around us, which is pretty mediocre. So they already had 2 categories. I just went a third one. So what it is cellmate is the bottom end of the ladder of love. And there's actually several different rungs of cellmate. The most toxic of all is what makes the front cover of newspapers and makes for, movie of the week. It's where, he kills her or stalks her or she does something crazy. It's really toxic love. It's angry love. It's based on, sometimes a nice person gets involved with a toxic person because they think they're going to rescue that person. So a nice person sometimes does get involved with cellmate love, but it is angry and it brings out the worst in us. And it usually ends in a courtroom, a jail, a morgue, or an emergency room at best. So, that's the very bottom rung. The second rung of cellmates is a little bit better. It's the Tommy Lee, Pamela Anderson, where, one day, he's smacking her around and she has him arrested, and the next day they're back together. It doesn't usually end quite as tragically as the first rung, but it's not so great either. Then a rung above it, the third rung, is what I call interchangeable love, or Donald Trump syndrome. It's all based on, superficial things, the way somebody looks, how much money they have, their power, and it's really the kinds of things that rise and fall. And so if you're really looking for, this sort of interchangeable love, if it doesn't work out, 2 minutes, you've replaced them with someone, a prettier, younger, better model, or a richer, more powerful model. And any of those relationships can get really toxic all the way down at the end of it, because we still have this misconception that we have to hate someone to leave them. And that's one of the misconceptions I try to say. No, you don't have to hate somebody. It's not serving your higher good. Get out of it. And so as you move up into like the fourth and fifth rungs, those are the old archetypes of marriage that I call razor's edge mates. It's sometimes I love you and sometimes I hate you. We're sort of walking that razor's edge between love and hate. If you were to watch Everybody Loves Raymond, did you ever see that show with, we have got Marie and Frank Barone. They're the oldest archetype of marriage. It's really taking each other for granted. They don't like each other. They barely talk. They're very juvenile. They say mean things. They never grow up. And Deborah and Raymond are just a notch above them. They're a little bit better, but not much, because Deborah's still calling Raymond an idiot all the time. And so those razor's edge mates don't ask for us to heal issues, nor do cellmates. We can stay angry. We can stay mean. We can say nasty things. We can cheat on our mate because we're really not committed, heart, soul, mind, and body to it. And we'll say, well, I'm cheating on her because she was mean to me today, so I can get even with her. So those are the lower ends. And a lot of marriages have just been this sort of sitcom marriage. And soulmates, on the other hand, are the upper rungs on the ladder of love, and it's healthy and healing. It brings out the best in us. It's loving someone and committing to them with our entire heart, soul, mind, and body. And it can be pretty scary because soulmate love demands that we heal our issues. God gives us these safe arms to hold us so that we can heal some of our deepest, darkest things. And that's why people run from it. Sometimes they'll say, well, I was fine till you came into my life. No, you weren't fine. Well, you had a Band-Aid on a carcinoma. You weren't fine, and now you're going to have to do the real job of healing. So people will sometimes run from a higher love because it does demand us to overcome not only our personal fears, but our larger transpersonal fears. And that's a big word, but it really just means we all come with fears that are inborn to all human beings. And those are the fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment. If you love someone so completely, and this person is not usually going to walk out on you, but they could die on us, that's what our energy bodies remember, loving so much and someone dying, or if in this lifetime we've loved a parent or a child or a friend and they've died on us, we remember how much that hurts. So we've really got to overcome our fear of abandonment via death. And the reason that I call myself the Romance Whisperer is to prove that love is an energy that can't be created, nor can it be destroyed. And if we love a soulmate the best that we can, heart, soul, mind, and body, they will find a way to commune with us telepathically, and they will bring us another soulmate if that's what we need to help us on our earth mission. So loving the best we can is never wrong. And the bottom rungs of cellmates, they have an unconscious contract that says, no matter what you do or I do, we never abandon each other. And that's what's really the horrible part of that. You can be really abusive and you're supposed to stick around. Only when one of the mates begins to heal does that contract finally be broken. And so we've got to stop doing these unconscious contracts between people that keep us trapped. And, what we have to learn is no more excuses you're being abusive. over the age of 25, God doesn't care who your mommy or daddy was, who did what to whom, when, or how, or where. Knock it off, get over it, and heal. And as old souls, we make too many excuses. We allow people to be abusive. We say, well, he had a hard life, so I let him do this to me. No, it's not okay. And those are the kinds of things that I'm just trying to point out that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
And the dead people want to come through. They come through to say, I taught dysfunction. And I'm here watching all the pain that my lousy marriage taught, how, we always have to repeat the marriages that we saw before the age of 5. And they come through to say, can you do better than we did so your children and your children's children can have a happy marriage?
Right. Now, let me play devil's advocate here for a minute about something that you had said. People, they say they were happy before love came in the picture, but then, all of a sudden love comes in and they've got all this anxiety and this panic. And, like speaking for myself, I'm single right now. I'm not in a relationship and I'm happy. I'm dancing and singing at home alone, whatever. And then it seems when quote unquote love walks in the door, suddenly I'm not so happy. So it's like, well, maybe I should just be alone.
Well, you know what? I need to tell you that's two brilliant statements there.
Okay.
One is that first and foremost, women particularly have to learn to stand on their own 2 feet before the prince comes. By that, I mean, historically, women have not been able to support themselves. So they've had to run what's called the prostitute archetype. They had to stay with men for money. And men historically were abusive. They cheated if they wanted to. They did whatever they wanted. Women had to just take it. Well, now we're the first generations of women asked to support ourselves so that we don't stay with a man unless we love him heart, soul, mind, and body. There's a little reversal of roles going on now. The men are becoming American gigolos in many ways. The women are supporting men. That's not the right thing either. 2 people have to be able to support themselves and then come together. So you going through a period of standing on your own 2 feet is very important. It's also erasing something that's inborn in women's collective unconscious, inborn into all of us women, is this. Any man, deaf, dumb, blind, lame, or stupid is better than standing on our own 2 feet. We have to erase that. No, it's better for us to stand on our own 2 feet than to have a man who's not pulling his share. And we're also asked to overcome the master-slave archetype, where men were the bosses over women and women were the slaves. And so if we haven't been able to overcome that, sometimes we're just better off to stand on our own 2 feet. And we also don't want to be mommy to a boy. That's another master-slave archetype. Lots of times we find ourselves being mommy to boys. The drug addicts or alcoholics, and we're mommy. Or a man suddenly has become our boss. So the first step to a higher love is being able to stand on your own 2 feet, to be your own lover, to take care of yourself, to heal yourself, and to know yourself. And then the higher love can walk in, because I'll tell you why. The first, just because we're given a soulmate, Lucia, it doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. And that's why if we get a soulmate and we don't heal our issues, we don't learn to say what we mean what we say without being mean about it, we drag the love down, usually to mediocre, sometimes to toxic. That's why so much love looks like mediocre. These soulmates bring it down to mediocre, or some of our friends, they need a man to fit a plan. They want to be married in 3 years and they want to have a baby. So they find a man to fit the plan, and that's usually sitcom mediocre love. And cellmates who fight for 10 years can't fight anymore, and they bring the love up to mediocre. So that's why so much looks mediocre. It didn't all start out that way. So just because you're given a soulmate and you don't work on it, pretty soon it becomes not a good love affair. But what becomes a danger is if you become feeling that you're peaceful all by yourself, which is a great thing, sometimes it's not true peace, because we've all had lifetimes in which we've been monks or lived in a monastery, and we've had these lives in which we felt we were so enlightened because we didn't have to scratch a living out of the earth, and we know how hard that is to make a living. 2, we didn't have to have a mate. We didn't have to have a husband or a wife. And boy, that can sometimes be, or raise children. And so we thought we were enlightened, hanging around with other enlightened beings, and God said, no, it's not true peace. True peace comes when we can be intimate with that sort of Adam and Eve relationship. So it is something, when we are in a relationship, any intimate relationship, some unhealed issues will surface. And a lot of the generation that's between the age of 20, my daughter's 29, the generation between 20 and 49 are starting to think they're better off alone. And we have so much distractions. You know, we can watch a million movies. We can put in, iPods in our ears. We can text message all day and email and be on a computer. It gives us the illusion that we're not alone. Right. And that's a lot of distraction. So after a period of a year or 2 or 5 years, probably is the maximum, it's time to start saying, I'm ready for love, but I don't want the animal that I had before. I don't want toxic. I don't want mediocre. And that's when you ask the universe to bring me a soulmate. And love always comes from God. And as soon as you say that, your angels, your guides, and those ancestors who have passed away are able to gift you with this soulmate, and they will. But it is waiting for soulmate love and not taking just mediocre.
Okay, and will we recognize our soulmate when we meet him or her?
Yes, there is what's called a recognition factor. All of us are part of a group soul, a larger group soul. I do believe, Lucia, that you're part of my group soul, or you would not have asked me to be part of your show.
Good.
And so all of us are linked somehow, and you did explain to me that you're Italian, and I'm half Italian, and the Italian relatives up there are just making me talk to the Italian relatives, because I'll tell you why. My grandparents, 2 generations back, had an arranged marriage. Yeah. Just 2 generations back. That taught a lot of dysfunction. And when my parents were able to, my father was able to choose his bride, he didn't really know how to make that better than mediocre, okay? Yeah. And so here we are, we all have a recognition factor. I believe, we're going to see our soulmate, we're going to say, somehow this person seems familiar to me. He or she has probably been with us in another lifetime. Rarely will we meet an entirely new soulmate, and that will still be part of our soul group. And this person would have learned similar lessons to us. We'll have this feeling when we're sitting with them, boy, you're a lot like me. Boy, you went through a lot of the same stuff I did to get to where you are. And it has this feeling of being comfortable with each other. It's a feeling of being comfortable. And that you've always known each other. We recognize it as children. You know how you meet a friend in school and you go, man, that's this great kid today. We're like best friends. Yeah. A soulmate is the kind of a person, our friend, that we don't see for 20 years, and we just run into them, and you could talk as if no time had passed. It's a very similar experience for that. And it does tend to bring out the best in us. Suddenly, we discover things about ourselves we really didn't even know, because this person is bringing them out, and we're bringing it out in that person. So you will have a recognition factor, a light bulb that goes off and goes, pay attention. Also, it will usually have been forewarned to you, either in a psychic reading, a dream, or we watch a movie and we say, oh, my God, that's going to happen to me. Or we read a novel and we go, oh, my God, that's me. So there will be that recognition factor, and it's a very strong. And the universe is just saying, pay attention.
It's so funny that we're doing this interview today, because yesterday I met this woman for the first time, and I barely know her, and she says to me, I see you as being happily married in a year and a half. And I'm like, me?
That's what it talks about.
And I'm like, me? And she goes,
and that's exactly what's happened. And the fact that you invited me here, because I'm such an expert in soulmates, your angels and guides are already saying, we want you to recognize you're just holding back because you want a soulmate love. And you maybe didn't have these words, and maybe you didn't think it all the way through. But now that I'm pointing out the pattern, it will start to go into your body. And one day you're going to wake up and say, I'm ready. And he'll be here the next day. I mean, I manifested my soulmate by saying, I've had enough of a man who can't commit. I need a soulmate who's going to commit to me. And I said, let him be a writer like me, and let him be fun and easygoing, and a person who's probably been married already, but liked being married. And I listed all these things. And the very next day I was supposed to go to a party, and I was kind of tired and I wasn't going to go. And my angels and guides said, Cindy, if you had to go to work, you'd get dressed and go. Could you please put on a pretty dress and makeup and go out? I wasn't at this party 5 minutes when my friends introduced me to this writer and this person. And within 10 minutes of talking, he said to me the words that I had just said to the universe the day before. He said, you're a keeper, and I'm ready to put my 2 feet into this relationship and make it work.
Oh, my God.
And I thought he had mirrored back the words that I said. He was a writer. He had been married, and all the things. And if I hadn't just thought about that the day before, I don't think I would have recognized quite as easily. So what you can do, Lucia, and your listeners can do is write down what your ideal soulmate would be, and be very greedy about this. You want it to be someone who will help you with your career, and, my soulmate definitely helps me. He's a journalist, and he helps me every day with publicity and whatever. And, you want somebody who helps you and who's your best friend, and someone who will make love to you and be passionate. You want that passion without drama. You want somebody who's easygoing. Please, you want easygoing.
Yes.
And, start listing the specific things so that when he comes, you'll say, oh, my God, you'll be able to check him off that list. Here he is. And that's how it works. And love always comes from God. And that's an important concept to understand, that love always comes from God. So that when people are in marriages that are less than heart, soul, mind, body, less than soulmate love, that have become nothing but a business arrangement, and suddenly that person finds himself in love with someone else, and I'll say, well, to God, the affair is not the what you would think is the affair. It's the marriage. That's not a real marriage to God. God would not bring love if you were happily married. And what he's trying to do is say, get out of this marriage, terminate this business arrangement that's showing your children toxic love. It's showing them mediocre love. And in essence, it's teaching war, because cellmates teach war. They have an outright war going on. Mediocre love teaches cold war. Your children understand the hostility behind, what you might not be saying. And God's saying, terminate this marriage in a kind of fair way if you can't fix it. You should always try to fix it. But sometimes it can't be fixed. It wasn't right in the beginning. Can't be right now. Terminate it fair and go to your soulmate and show your children what soulmate love looks like. By all means, be soulmate friend to your ex-partner, to your ex-marriage, spouse. You can do it. I am soulmate friends with my ex-husband. It can be done.
Sure, of course.
And that begins to show, because the hand of divorce is God saying, I am not going to have a World War III in 40 years. And if we don't stop teaching war, it's going to go on and on and on. So my mission is really one of world peace, but it just starts with one relationship at a time.
Right.
Making peace in your home so there's peace in the world.
Absolutely. And also from reading your book, because you talk about ending relationships in a karmically correct way. And so after I read that, I sent an email to someone that I broke up with about a year and a half ago. Because I didn't end it correctly. I was very mean about it. I just walked away and never spoke to him again. And so because of reading your book, I did the right thing. So what is the correct way to end a relationship?
Okay, that is exactly what you need to know. Karmically correct manner is, if you have a business arrangement like a marriage, you have to be fair and just with dividing the money. Okay, you also have to be kind. You don't have to hate somebody to leave them. You have to treat the person with respect, particularly if they're children, if they're the mother or father of your child. You have to, and if your mate won't do this, if they want to be mean and ugly, you're only responsible for your behavior. That's the main tenet in my book. You are only responsible for your behavior. If your mate's cursing and screaming at you, that doesn't give you a carte blanche to do it or a license to do it back. You just can walk away and you watch your words very carefully. And it does demand that we don't just walk away without saying why. We give it closure. And I'll tell you why. If we leave an angry note, we hate that person, we leave angry, you're going to, by grant me a higher love, we earn the level of love we deserve. So if you end it on a toxic note, the next relationship is going to begin on a toxic note. God is only going to bring you a cellmate. You ended it in a cellmate fashion, you will be given a cellmate. If you end it in a soulmate fashion, which means you're as kind as you can, you're as fair as you can, you're not looking to hurt, you're not looking to lash out, you will have earned a soulmate love. So the way we end a relationship is the way the next one shall begin.
Wow.
So that's why when you now did what was karmically correct, give it closure. Commitment phobics are the worst of all. Commitment phobia is one of the big topics in my book.
Yeah.
A commitment phobic will end a relationship at the moment it's at its height, it's at its best. They'll run from a higher love because they don't want to heal. And if you don't take this personally, because they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting a higher love. And it's very hard not to take it personally. But a commitment phobic will end a relationship on a dime, not look back, not even call you or speak. And that is the most devastating experience that's happened to me. And let me tell you, that's why I wrote my book. I said, this is really bad. Mm-hmm. Why did this person run? Why am I terrified to even contact this person? And what is it I need to learn? And when someone leaves in the height of romance and love, it is a devastation. I call it a sacred betrayal. Mm-hmm. But there are many lessons in that ending. That's when we're hanging on that cross like Jesus. You know, Judas or Peter betrayed Jesus. It was a sacred betrayal. You hang from that cross for a while until you learn those lessons. And the main lesson that I learned was he didn't reject me. He rejected the higher love that I had to offer. And perhaps it was the kindest thing he could do, because he would have dragged that love right down the ladder of love from soulmate to toxic. And maybe it was better off he left before he did that. And so I try to see it through his eyes as well as my own. But I would be damned if anyone else was going to suffer as much as I did. Mm-hmm. There has to be some reason for suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, speaking about the ending of relationships, because something recently ended for me. The other person ended it. And, you talk about messages from the universe. And you know that song by Justin Timberlake, What Goes Around Comes Around?
Absolutely.
Of course. So I had only heard like once or twice before in my life. So suddenly I heard that song 3 times in 10 days. So I'm like, something's up here. Why am I keep hearing the song? And on top of that, in that 10 days, I dreamt of Justin Timberlake twice.
Wow.
So so I was trying to...
songs are definitely messages from angels. Songs are definitely messages from angels.
And I was trying to figure out, okay, are they saying to me, okay, because, I've walked away or I've ended so many relationships that I barely know what it's like for someone else to end the relationship on me, that now I'm experiencing it? Or are they saying, don't worry, he broke up with you, or so what goes around comes around, someone's going to break up with him? It's like, I wasn't sure what the message was.
Okay, it was right, yes. In the laws of karma, you would have to get back what you gave, yes. But it's also now, leave the rest in the hands of karma and go in peace.
Oh, okay.
Don't try to punish him. Don't try to find out what his lessons were. You can find out, really, if you wanted to. But pretty much, he will learn, you have learned. And it's really what we reap is what we sow. And so now, in your endings of relationships, and not all relationships are meant to last forever, right. So we're going to have endings. Some soulmates can be perfect. I've had a relationship that was perfect for 5 years,
wow.
but it was, relationships do work in 5-year cycles normally. And at the end of that 5-year cycle, it was time to end it, and we ended it in kind and a fair and just way. And it does not subtract from the fact that was, I think it was a perfect relationship for those 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can start realizing sometimes we're going to be the one whose soul is going to feel a need to move on. Sometimes the other person's soul is going to have a need to move on. And let's honor that souls will guide us in and out of relationships. And that, it always hurts to end a relationship at some level, but we can make the partings much less important. So if you could just learn, if you have to end a relationship, you're going to be as kind and fair about it as you can.
I'll be nicer.
And if someone does it to you, you're going to bless them and let them go.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, so that was interesting. Now, you also say not to question the package that love comes in. So,
that's the hard one.
Okay, that's why I'm asking you about it.
That's the hard one. In other words, soulmates, particularly in this new millennium, are going to look like the Odd Couple. And a movie that perfectly pointed this in the 70s was Harold and Maude. Do you remember that movie?
No.
Harold and Maude, okay, you should see it.
Okay.
Maude is like 80 years old, and Harold is like 18, and Harold wants to kill himself. And Maude and Harold have a love affair. And Maude teaches him how to live.
Wow.
And then she ends up, killing herself at the end, which is the only part I didn't like about the movie. But at point, like, she knew she wasn't supposed to be with him forever. But she gave him how to love life. And so you're going to sometimes have soulmates, you're going to have a big age difference, anywhere from 10 to 20 or more years. It could be a racial difference. It could be a religious difference. It could be a lesbian couple, a homosexual couple. It isn't going to look like traditionally it was like the perfect tribal package. Italians married Italians, Jews married Jews.
Right,
it's going to look different, and it's going to rock the tribe. The tribe isn't going to be happy about it necessarily.
Well, it's funny that you mention it, because I don't know that I specialize in cougar relationships. So I'm an advocate for older women dating younger men, and so many people are against it.
And you know what? That's how I learned it. Mine was a cougar, and I was much older than him, and I realized that he couldn't come to the plate on this issue, okay, although we were very high soulmates. Uh-huh. And I think maybe he could never get to not questioning the package. And God was pretty kind to him because, I'm 56, but most people never think that we look more than 40, and he's 40. So to look at us on the surface, you're not even going to see it.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't like I look like Harold, like Maude, and he's Harold.
Right.
But not to question the package. That's how I learned it. Or if someone is disabled or whatever thing might seem like a daunting obstacle, soulmates are going to have some obstacles. It's the easy sitcom marriage that we go into. That's why, it is the tribal thing. It's the right age, sex, whatever, type. Mm-hmm. But we get into those easy. Yeah. Rather than a soulmate love, you might have to think about it. Oh, my God, there's an age difference. Oh, my God, there is, a religious difference. There may be some obstacles until you get to the point where you realize only love matters to God. Right. Only love matters. And if you can get to that point as a cougar and make it work, that's wonderful. I mean, that's what Demi Moore has proven. Yes. She let them all laugh at her. And, and now they're not laughing anymore, are they?
No, they're still together.
They're looking at them as a great couple, right?
Absolutely.
But at first, every, late night television show was making fun of, Ashton Kutcher and her. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
And she was one of the people that had the courage to sort of move forward with that and make it happen.
Yeah, I always say that she kicked off the Cougar Revolution.
Absolutely. And, that's, sometimes if it happens and this is who your soulmate is so much younger than you or even older than you, you may find he might be 20 years older than you, and maybe that's going to be a kick in your cougar butt, that he's 20 years older than you.
There's no way I'm marrying someone 20 years older.
Never say never.
Never.
And that's like, okay.
Shoot me now.
But again, it might be something that you will find to be different, Okay. So don't question the package. If your ideal soulmate is younger than you, then please put it in there. But yes. If it's not, it's because God's saying only souls matter. You're registering something deep in the soul, and a soul is immortal. The heart's a perennial child. And, those are the things that never, age.
Now, what if someone loves you, but you're not sexually attracted to them? Are you supposed to give them a chance?
That's not going to work for long.
Okay.
Because, remember, I said it has to be heart, soul, mind, and body.
Right.
And, I have clients who come to me and they're going to marry, a guy, and they're going, I love him. I'll ask him, and everybody should always ask your friends who are getting married, do you love him with your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body? Uh-huh. And she'll say, I love him with my heart, my soul, my mind, but I don't love him with my body. I said, well, you'll be cheating on him. And she'll go, I already am. And I go, you're going to walk down the aisle next week? I don't think so. Because if you're not sexually attracted or sexually satisfied, 1 year, 1 month, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, you're going to cheat. Because we're an animal. We have animal needs. Yep. And you cannot deny the animal part of us. And that part needs to be fulfilled. And, I would say if you don't have that chemistry, you're not meant to marry that person or to stay with them long term. It just isn't going to work.
Right.
Because sexuality, and hopefully it'll become more sacred and more special as time goes on, is a glue that holds a couple together.
Absolutely.
It is something that, you might say, oh, God, I'm about to walk out of this relationship, and that person comes and gives you a kiss and makes love to you, and you go, no, I'm staying.
Yes.
End of argument,
right.
It's something really, really special and deep there. So, don't negate any of it, and if you don't love the person's mind, you don't love the way they think, you don't love their values, that's one thing. Love is not a compromise. And if we're with a man and we think that he's unethical or his business practices are unethical and we're an ethical person, it isn't going to work either. You can't compromise on your core values for a person. You can't.
Right.
So those are things that I don't think we've been, I don't think, anybody taught us much about love. It's love. You love the person, right? Yeah, you love him, so marry him. Nobody told you that not all love is created equal. And, in teaching this and just showing these patterns, suddenly people are able to see what they're doing wrong, and they can actually correct it and stop a pattern.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And thank God you wrote the book to tell us that. Now,
because it really is very, and once people learn it really is simple. And you know what? Well, you'll have a vocabulary for your girlfriends to say, okay, so you want to stay with him, he's a cellmate. Okay, you want to go toxic, it's going to end in a courtroom, jail, morgue, or emergency room. When are you going to get out of it? So you're going to have a sitcom marriage, huh? You want to be Marie and Frank Barone? Okay, go for it then. You'll be able to just say it almost in a funny way, and people say, oh, man, yeah, she's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now you also say that relationships are mirrors of ourselves. But, how does this work? Because let's say if someone cheats on me, but I'm not the type to cheat, then what does that mean?
Well, it can sometimes mean we're an old soul who's tolerating someone being abusive, and that's mirroring our soul, that we're an old soul who's learned certain lessons too well. We've learned to make too many excuses for people. We've learned to forgive too quickly. Old souls forgive while the drunk driver with a Mack truck still has the truck on you. We say, oh, I forgive you, I forgive you. No, you have to first go to the hospital, heal those bones for years, go through a court system in which you get some liability back here and some compensation, and then you forgive. So what happens is sometimes it's mirroring the fact that we're too good, we're too kind, we're too forgiving, we're too tolerant. You see, it's a difference. We have to learn to start saying, no more excuses, you're being abusive to me. Or we have to stop rescuing somebody. The story of the Beauty and the Beast, I very rarely see the beast, the prince, the drug addict who becomes the prince. I don't see that often. I see the prince who becomes the beast. He starts out really looking good. Yeah. And then suddenly, the first couple of months or years, he's really the prince. He's a narcissist. He really knows how to reel us in, and everything on the surface is perfect. And then we find out he's cheating on us. That may be because we're old souls that don't see evil. We don't see that the person is lying or the person isn't really being truthful. And so it's mirroring the lessons that we perhaps learned too well, not to see evil. I mean, I have an expression that if you and I were dining with Mussolini and Hitler in 1944, you would say, these are great guys. Mussolini's got the trains running on time. Hitler's got the kids, boys in school. This is great. We wouldn't see the 60 million skeletons. We bring out the best in people. So part of it is we've learned certain lessons too well. We've learned to rescue. And what's been channeled to me is we're not to rescue anybody except if the Titanic is sinking. The Titanic sank a big one time. We go get the bodies, we bring them to dry land, and we run. We don't keep rescuing over and over again. So some of those, you might find yourself in a soulmate relationship just because you're too damn nice, okay? And we're going to have to learn to be a little less nice, a little bit more protective of ourselves. We have to count. It matters if someone hurts us. It matters if they're mean to us. We can't just say, well, he had a hard life, so he can be mean to me. No, he can't be mean. It's not acceptable. Right. So they mirror both the good and the bad of us. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So you have to look at every relationship to see what is it that I was meant to learn or to teach that person. And, so as each relationship, if you could go back, and that's part of my book, go back to every relationship you've ever had and see what was I meant to learn and what was I meant to teach. It's a very, it would really help you move forward.
Right. That would take a long time for me.
But, yeah, and for most people, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about jealousy.
Oh boy, that's a big monster.
How the hell are we ever going to get rid of jealousy? Because obviously you're going to be insecure if, let's say, your mate has been acting distant lately, and then you see him talking to an attractive member of the opposite sex.
Yeah, well, jealousy is part of our collective unconscious, and all human beings right now have some level of jealousy. That's why I place jealousy on a ladder. And there's garden-type variety that we all think is normal because everybody has it. I would venture to tell you it's not normal, and probably it will take thousands of years for human beings to evolve to where it will not be something we experience. But right now, we have to understand that it is a monster, that jealousy is not about the other person. And one of the most important lessons I can teach somebody is if you're in a marriage and it's really bad and you want to get out of it, and suddenly, you're leaving it and your husband or your wife suddenly finds somebody else and you're being replaced, you might feel jealous and you might think, oh, I still love him. I got to go back with him. I got to save this marriage. No, jealousy has nothing to do with love. It has to do with fear and insecurity. So you're jealous. You might have to understand you've got some issues of your own of insecurity, but it's not that you still love this person. So don't mistake jealousy with a level of love. Soulmates, often have pathological jealousy issues. That's why it's so toxic. That doesn't mean they love each other all that much. It just means they have real major jealousy issues, and it has to do with self-esteem, insecurity. Also has to do with sexual abuse issues. People who have been sexually abused often can be pathologically jealous, and I'll tell you why. They don't trust you near anybody. If their own mother or father sexually abused them, they don't trust you near anybody, not your mother, not your father, not your brother, not your uncle. So that's another issue there, and it's a real toxic one. And jealousy, I think, historically was necessary. When we were in cavemen and cavewomen, we needed to jealously guard over our healthy wife because she would give us healthy children. We needed to jealously guard over our healthy husband because he would bring home the bacon and the food for us.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a reason we needed to guard over our mate, a healthy mate. But we don't need to sort of guard over at that level. And so if we begin to realize that we can also sometimes use jealousy for good. If you've been taking your mate for granted, your soulmate love's gone down to, sitcom marriage, you might, and all of a sudden somebody's flirting with her husband and suddenly they're finding him to be quite attractive. You might say, I need to pay a little bit more attention to my husband. I need to make love to him and make him feel like he's king or really great. Or if we're suddenly feeling insecure because we've let ourselves get out of shape and we don't look so good and some attractive woman's hanging on him, we might say, I need to get myself to the gym. I need to, take care of myself and look a little better for myself and for my mate. So it can be used for good, but it's the pathological jealousy that you have to watch out for. That's the real master-slave archetype where the man or the woman thinks they own you.
Mm-hmm.
And because they own you, that's where it's really scary.
Yeah.
And so we have to overcome. Nobody owns us. We own ourselves. So, I don't know if you've ever been with a pathologically jealous mate, but it's not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I was married to a very jealous man. It's part of the reason why after 29 years of marriage, I divorced him. I couldn't take it.
Wow.
I mean, he was guarding over me. I couldn't, smile at the mailman. I mean, come on, give me a break here. And it was really inhibiting me as a person, and I couldn't do my earth mission with that person, with him being so jealous. So, we have to work on our jealousy issues, and I think we all have them. I mean, I have them. I'm not perfect, but we have to realize it's not really healthy. And every time we feel jealous, we have to say, jealousy is about me.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I so insecure? Or if we have a mate who is cheating on us, well then, hey, that's not about jealousy. It's about you got a mate who's going to bring you maybe AIDS or HIV virus or herpes. Maybe it isn't jealousy. Maybe it's self-preservation in that you need to get away from that person. So every single lesson is a little bit different, and that's why in my book there's 1,000 or a million lessons, because only you reading the book at which each relationship will say, oh, that's the lesson I need to learn from this particular relationship.
Well, like I find with jealousy, if the person has not given me a reason to be insecure or jealous, I'm not. I've been in relationships where, I had my girlfriend move in with my boyfriend because he needed a roommate. And I had no problem with that. Whereas other people, I'm very insecure and jealous because of the way they're behaving.
And that's right. And it's a ladder, and it goes up and down. And some people will push our jealousy buttons more than others. They will.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to decide, do I want to be with a person who's bringing the worst out in me? If it's bringing out the worst in you, it's now a toxic relationship. And if no matter how you try, you can't fix that, then it's time to walk away. Because if this person is deliberately doing things to make you jealous or deliberately wants to bring out the worst in you, or it's just a person you can't trust.
Yeah.
And some people can't be trusted. And, I'm a very liberal person. If you want to sleep with 900 people, by all means sleep with 900 people, but please tell all 900 you're sleeping with them and practice safe sex. It's the cake and eat it too that has to end, where men have historically cheated on women,
yes,
and women had to tolerate it.
Right.
I'm saying let's be honest, let's be open. And, if you're a person who can never be monogamous, well, by all means, then don't marry or marry a person who wants an open marriage. They don't mind that you're sleeping with other people. There's a lid for every pot.
Right.
Just, find the right one for you.
But
So
it just seems
look at what jealousy is revealing.
Mm-hmm. But it just seems that most guys, I'm going to make a big generalization here, most guys do cheat.
Well, if you think most guys do cheat, you're going to draw up most guys who are going to cheat. Because in the laws of attraction,
yes,
God will say, if you think most men cheat, well, then I'm going to, you're not saying something. You must believe it. It must be true. So I'm going to keep showing it's true until you finally say there's got to be a better way.
Okay.
There must be one good man for me.
1 in 10 million.
One good man for me,
right?
Who doesn't cheat. Well, part of it has been the patriarchal cultures, the Spanish, the Italian,
yes,
have cheated. And, this year I was very blessed to channel Martin Luther King of all people because I dedicated one of my own radio shows to him, and it was Not All Love is Created Equal. And Martin Luther King came through to tell me he was a very good man. He answered his calling to show that all men are created equal, but he was a bad boy. He cheated on his wife, and he should have said all men and all women are created equal. And he asked me to teach black women and Latino women to stop allowing the men to cheat on them. And for like a month, all these Spanish women and black women were coming with their men who were cheating for guidance. And he said, who are they cheating with? Mostly not with other men, although that's part of it. Initially, they do cheat with other men, but they're cheating with other women. And we women need to boycott men. And we need to stand together and say, if a man is married or a man's in a committed relationship, then we can't cheat with him.
That's right.
He's got to end that relationship before we get involved with him.
That's right.
And that's an important lesson for women to stand together.
Mm-hmm. All right, and we'll help spread it. Unfortunately, the interview is over. It was great.
Oh, it went so fast. My goodness.
Know. Well, your book's so
really
big, I can have you back on again because your book's so big. It's like 2 books in one. Again, the title is grantmeahigherlove.com. The website, of course, grantmeahigherlove.com. Cindy, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks so much for having me, and I can't wait to hear within a year that you're going to have a soulmate love. It's coming.
A year and a half. I'll be sure to let you know.
Okay, let me know.
Okay.
And thanks so much again, and I really love being on your show.
Thanks. It was great having you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, the show's over. Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, you can read an excerpt from my book at lessonsoflove.net. You can sign up for my free weekly newsletter at theartoflove.net. And finally, remember that love inspires, empowers, uplifts, and enlightens.
You're listening to The Art of Love with your host, Lucia, right here on LA Talk Radio.